Hi everyone, welcome to my Python tutorial. This is part 2 where we continue our discussion on functions. In this video we're going to send lists and dictionaries to our function, which is really not that different than what we've been doing. But the fact that the lists and dictionaries are mutable objects in Python, some interesting things can happen. So we just want to make sure we understand these. I've created two lists here, one with a list of 5 names and one empty list called validated users. So the idea here is we're going to simulate an online system or a web server that takes in a list of names and validates them against some criteria. We're not going to validate them, but we'll still create a function to prove our point. So the first thing we do is we create our function called user validate, and it takes two parameters or two arguments. One is the list for the names, and one is the empty list for validated users. So it takes both of these lists, and we have a while loop that runs as long as there are items in the names list, and removes the last item with the pop statement. We discussed the pop statement in lesson 1.4, but what the pop statement does is takes the last item from the list and we save it in a variable called vuser. So it removes the last item until all the items are gone. And then we print this is our phony validation process. We print out the user, whoever it is, the user has been validated. So finally, once we print it, we add the user to the validated users list, and that's basically our function. So we call the function down here, and we send the two arguments to it, to both lists. So when we run this, we get our list of users and showing that they have been validated. So these users now should be moved out of the names list and into the validated users list. So we can show that here by printing the validated users and printing the name list. The name list should be empty, and the 5 users should be in the validated users list. And it looks like that's the case. So these empty brackets down here means that there are no entries in the name list. Now that's the key point with sending lists or dictionaries to functions. This list, my original list up here, has been changed. So when you send a list to a function in Python, it only sends a reference to the list, an alias, a pointer to this list. So when we modify the list in our function, we actually modify the original list. And that's a key point to understand. There are ways of sending the list in such a way that it creates a copy. It's probably not recommended because it gets a little hard to manage at that point. So just be aware that you're not sending a list, you're sending a pointer to a list, and any modifications that you do in your function will impact the original list. To further drive this point home, I put a command at the end of the loop that says to update the names list with a statement that says that the list has been updated. It's important to note that this command is under the while statement. If this command was in here in the loop, you would create an infinite loop because you would remove users from the list, but you would be adding entries here, so it would actually never end. But because it's here, it executes after the while statement has completed. So once we run this, we should see that the list has been updated. It has one entry in there to show that that is all is in the names list after the function has run. So the same applies with dictionaries. We have our dictionary here, our spam, eggs, and ham dictionary. And we print it before we send it to the function, and then in the function we'll say if spam in breakfast, we'll remove spam, and then we'll call the function, and finally we'll print the breakfast dictionary after the function has run to see the difference. So we run this, and as you can see, the function has the dictionary has all the items. before it goes to the function. The function searches the dictionary for spam. If it finds it, it deletes it. It did find it, it did delete it. And if we print the dictionary after the function, we see that spam has been removed. So it's the same for dictionaries and lists, and the reason it's a little tricky with both is because they're mutable. Strings are also, for example, objects, but because strings are immutable, they're unchangeable, there's less likely to have undesired implications as a result of strings. So the important thing to understand is the difference between passing a reference and a value to a function. I think that concludes our lesson on functions. We've covered the basics, and you should be able to use them in your code with what you've learned here. And the next lesson we're going to look at modules, and personally I think modules is where the main jump of programming comes, because that'll allow you to use other people's code, and at the end of the day that's what we're trying to do here, to leverage other code to write games and business applications. We can't do this all ourselves, so modules is a key way to do. It's the only way to do a lot of that. So if you want the code for this video, go to my website at pythonforadults@kids.com. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this if you like it. Thanks so much. See you soon.